All right, so there we go. The search for the Texans' next head coach seems to be at least coming to an end when it comes to phase one. DeMeco Ryans has interviewed. He is, by the way, the betting favorite right now. And Mike Kafka will interview tomorrow. We got to think these are going to be the final first interviews. I don't see any surprise coming. It's a pretty productive process up to this point. I don't see like some sort of situation where Lovie Smith comes out of nowhere. I think that the names that we've heard up to this point, we know who is going to or we've at least heard the name of who's going to be interviewed. It is The Locker Room on YouTube, number one source for Texans digital content. I do this daily, Monday through Friday, 10 to 2. I'm on Sports Radio 610 in the Loop, the show of record in Houston. We have players on weekly. We have coaches. We have ownership. And we're at all the games, tailgating before, in the press box after, in the locker room, the real locker room after, and then this one after that. So subscribe, like, do all that type of stuff. It's been a hell of a start. Just started this thing at the start of the season, needed to increase the digital presence. There's a need for more of a digital presence for Texans stuff. And hopefully you ride along with me, whether you're a Texans fan or not. It's probably the best pulse, in my opinion. I'm biased. There's other good resources, but I think it's the best pulse to get a grasp of what's going on with the team. And right now we are in a coaching search, and Mike Kafka is going to get his crack tomorrow. Giants just got completely thumped by the Eagles. And so Mike Kafka, he's not going to have to be a hardo and, focus on the game. Who knows what would have happened if he would have interviewed this week instead of focusing on that game. Maybe they would have lost by, 70 instead of 30 or whatever the hell they ended up losing. I still like Kafka. Okay. I still think Mike Kafka did a hell of a job with Daniel Jones. He was the clear play caller from the very beginning. Brian Dable trusted him to do that. Came from Kansas City with Andy Reid. Might need to wait a little bit longer. But I like Kafka. He's also going to interview with Indianapolis tomorrow, so he's going to be busy. After he gets his the Eagles' foot out of his ass and gets off the plane and does whatever he needs to do to get ready. So Mike Kafka going to interview with the Texans. The Colts have done 14 interviews. After tomorrow, I think they will have done 14 interviews. The Texans did 8. And Ben Johnson's out, so they're down to 7. It's DeMeco. It's the 2 Philly coordinators, Kafka, Brown, Evero, and I guess Sean Payton. We can probably take Sean Payton off and trim it to 6 if we so desire. But DeMeco Ryans is the betting favorite, and J.J. Watt has endorsed him. The entire city really seems to have endorsed him, and there's a lot of momentum in the direction of DeMeco Ryans. But I kind of want to bring this and put the comments in. We'll be sure to go through these comments and get the best ones in. And be sure to like, subscribe, all that type of stuff. But I want to talk about, because I like to localize it. That's what I pride myself doing on the radio show on Sports Radio 610. That's what really any good local radio host should do, is localize, because you're speaking to the people in your city, and you want people to come to you for that. But I kind of want to localize this and just kind of try to bring it back to the Texans. And sometimes that can be hard. Sometimes that's a reach. But I think with day one of the divisional round, the Chiefs beating the Jags, and the Jags having a great season, and then the Eagles thumping the Giants and the Giants having a good season, I think there are some lessons that can be pretty relevant when it comes to Nick Caserio and the decision he's going to make when it comes to hiring a coach, and the decisions he's going to have to make after that if he wants to get to the point where these teams were today, instead of, us talking about the draft as soon as the season ends, and God forbid, having to root for losses. So lesson number 1 for me, and I think this one's the most important, it's the most relevant right now, is the popular one ain't always the right one. And I'm talking about the head coaching hire. You have multiple examples today, one on the losing side and one on the winning side, and both teams with the arrows pointing up, where coaches were initially hired and it wasn't a strong reaction or celebration of the hire when it was made. And I'm not into straw man arguments. I'm not into generalizations, but I keep up with what goes on in Jacksonville as much as I can. And the people that I talked to, they were not happy that Doug Peterson was the guy. They might have backtracked now, but they wanted Byron Leftwich. And we were actually in a chat room, and it turned into kind of a Jags gathering as soon as Doug Peterson was hired. And I was surprised how pissed everyone was. And I'm marking your questions, so I'll get to the questions. But they were not happy about Doug Peterson. They wanted Byron Leftwich. Now, why did they want Byron Leftwich? He'd done a pretty good job as a coordinator, and he played there before. I'm not saying he's DeMeco Ryans. I think DeMeco Ryans has a little bit more charisma than Byron. I think DeMeco Ryans has a little bit more it factor. I think DeMeco Ryans is a much better candidate as far as being a head coach than Byron Leftwich. I'm just saying, if they would have had their way in Jacksonville, they would have gotten the successful coordinator that played there. However, they got Doug Peterson, and Doug Peterson has done a hell of a job. So sometimes the popular one ain't the right one. And the biggest example of that, and you can go on Twitter. If you want to kind of laugh your ass off on Twitter, just do this right now. Type in Sirianni and Bieniemy, and you will see what the reaction was in Philadelphia when Nick Sirianni was hired. And really, everyone mocked that hire. Hell, I don't think anyone was sitting there saying, oh, this is an excellent hire. Maybe Nick Sirianni's parents, maybe Frank Reich or something like that, but nobody was celebrating the Nick Sirianni hire, and Philadelphia was probably the maddest city of all. What's he done since he got there? He took a team that won 4 games to go 9-8 and make the playoffs. Surprised a lot of people. And he has the best team in the league this year in the regular season. He has Jalen Hurts as an MVP candidate, and they're hosting the NFC Championship game. So the first lesson from today, and again, I like the popular one. Someone just asked on the comments, Jim, who's your choice for head coach? I want DeMeco. I like a lot of the candidates, but I want DeMeco. So that would be my guy. But the first lesson, let's just go with the popular one ain't always the right one. So there you go. Next one, and this is a no bleep. You make good trades, you draft well, you end up in pretty good shape. Howie Roseman, in 2 years, has put together one of the most impressive rosters in football, and he's done it in every way possible. You trade up to get Devontae Smith. The Cowboys had to decide, do they want to trade with the Giants or do they want to trade with the Eagles? It was kind of an awkward situation where the Cowboys were sitting in front of both of those guys. So one of them was going to get Devontae Smith. The Cowboys decided, do we want to trade with the G-men or do we want to trade with the Eagles? They trade with the Eagles. Eagles trade up and get Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith, remember when people were saying, despite the fact he was a Heisman Trophy winner and despite the fact he dominated the SEC, that he was too small and too little, he had 1,000 yards this year. He's a really good receiver. He would be the number 1 receiver on the Eagles, except they made another good trade. They decided to trade up and get A.J. Brown, or they decided to trade and get A.J. Brown last year. Now, that's good. Some people would say, well, why'd you trade that draft pick? But we go to another trade because the Philadelphia Eagles also have the Saints' first-round pick this year. So the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be drafting right there in the top 10 because of all the trades they made. And there's a whole list of trades that the Eagles have made. They just make great trades. When you make great trades, you can build a roster. Not these little, pick swaps that Nick Caserio has been doing, but good trades. I mean, look at that. Just look at that. You traded up for Devontae Smith. You traded for A.J. Brown. You traded with the Saints so they could have Chris Olave. And now the Saints, who had a bad season, you're a win away from being in the Super Bowl, and you still got the Saints pick. So you make good trades. You draft well. You make the right decisions. And you're in really, 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 really good shape. The other thing that the Eagles did, if we want to continue to talk about these trades, I mean, they got pretty good value for a broken Carson Wentz. I was talking with someone online, and he was talking about, well, they did draft Carson Wentz. They did draft these other guys, Rager and Aguilar. Yeah, that was pre-2020 when the rebuild started. But Carson Wentz was an MVP front runner before he got hurt. And then he was broken, and they got first rounder for him. So you make good trades, man. Howie Roseman deserves a lot of credit for what he did. Draft well, make good trades. That's lesson number 2. So lesson number 1, the quarterback or the popular choice is not always the right choice. Lesson number 2, trades, man. Goodness gracious. Trades. You can go back to Kansas City. Kansas City traded for Frank Clark. So if you're going to trade, if you're going to make trades, you got to make good ones. They traded for Tomey. And he's absolutely killing it. Got to make good trades. Yeah, Tony. Kadarius Toney. Make good trades and find yourself in pretty decent situation. Lesson number 3, and this is no bleep. The quarterback can change a lot. Quarterback can change a lot of things. And he can be the lipstick on the pig of other situations. Chiefs traded up for Patrick Mahomes. That's completely changed their franchise. It's the best run in franchise history. The Jaguars got Trevor Lawrence. Think even better days are ahead, but he took a leap this year. So the quarterback can change a lot. Texans got the number 2 pick. It's too bad it's not the number 1. But the quarterback can change a hell of a lot. So that's a no bleep, Landry, thing. And I would agree with you if you said that. Next lesson, even with the tax, you can change a lot for the better. The Jags, like the Texans, have a tax where they're not a very good squad. It's not a prime free agent destination. So when it comes to signing free agents, the Jags had to overpay Christian Kirk. They had to go get Ingram. They had to overpay some other guys. They brought in Zay Jones. And because of that, they helped out their quarterback. They helped out Trevor Lawrence. But this year, last year we were saying when it came to receivers, man, it's thin. There's not a lot of great receivers on the market. And it was like, whoa, Christian Kirk got what? My goodness. Even with the tax, you can change a lot. When you sign guys, when you sign the right guys. So that's the next lesson from today. Next one. You know how to get this in. I'm a running back guy. I don't like the way in which running backs have been devalued. I think it's gone way too far. Way too far. I think it's gotten to the point where now you can get a running back in the second round that probably shouldn't have been there. Nick Chubb falls to the second round. Derrick Henry falls to the second round. Dalvin Cook falls to the second round. Like all these running backs, these studs, they go to the second round now because nobody values them. And I get it. They're gonna hold out after year 3. So you think I would just, for me, if you can get 3 good years from a running back, give it to me. Give it to me. 3 elite years, that type of impact, give it to me. I'll take it. And you saw it with the Jags, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got Travis Etienne. James Robinson had a similar rookie year to Dameon Pierce. He'd rushed, I think he was 5th in the league in rushing. He'd rushed for 1,100 yards. The Jags had an extra first-round pick, and they took Travis Etienne. Now, he got hurt in camp, but this year he was a big part of what they did. And without Etienne, I don't know that the Jags get as far as they did. So when you have extra picks, even if you have a running back who's good like Dameon Pierce was, sometimes you want to kick the tires on that guy. Sometimes you got to kick the tires on that guy. And that's, I mean, you got someone on the thing, JRG, Devin Achane, cool. Gibbs, cool. Bijan Robinson at 12, cool. And I know some people are saying, well, you don't want to take a running back at 12. That's fine. There's going to be a lot of good receivers in the second round this year. Lots of good receivers in the second round. It's actually a really deep second round. And quite honestly, we're talking about the Eagles and how smart they are. Don't be surprised if the Eagles take Bijan Robinson when they have that Saints pick, because they got the extra pick. I can tell you that's when you do it. When you got that extra pick, that's what the Jags did. The Eagles probably don't want to pay Sanders. They probably don't want to pay Miles Sanders. Why not just get someone who might be an even better receiver and even more explosive? Led the league in broken tackles this year. And Bijan Robinson. I would not necessarily bet strongly on Bijan Robinson being there even at 12. If he's at 12, then you do it. And Jacksonville is another example. So that's the next lesson. Brady Langston says Bryce Young and Bijan Robinson would be my dream scenario. Mine too. And then in the second round, there's going to be a stud receiver there. It is a stacked receiver group in that area. It's not going to be as top heavy as last year. You're not going to see all these guys falling out in the top 10, but from about maybe like right after 10 all the way to the third round, you're going to see a crap ton of receivers out there. Crap ton. Chris says, I'm not taking Bijan at 12. I'd trade down first. That's fine. Do you trust Caserio to trade down at this point? That's the one thing I would ask. I don't think we can fully judge Caserio. I don't think it's apples to apples when we talk about what he's going to be as a GM. But I mean, he traded back last year. How does that look right now? Maybe their plan was to get Kyle Hamilton, or their plan was to get Jameson Williams. But they drafted Kenyon Green, and Kenyon Green was out of shape. Kenyon Green did not look good this year. It's early, but that was Caserio trading back. I mean, we'll see what happens. I still think Kenyon's going to be a good starter, but it's hard for me to imagine that Kenyon Green is all of a sudden going to look like someone that justifies being a mid-first rounder. You can mark this. I hope I'm wrong. I like him. I like his I like what he's about. His dad seemed like a pretty good dude. His mom seemed like a really nice lady when they interviewed him on draft day. But yeah, I don't know. Like Caserio trade back and do what? I mean, I'm even worried about Caserio trading up. Like his 2 biggest question marks, and again, it's early. But this one I don't think is too early. But the most aggressive that he's gotten with trading back and trading up are probably the 2 Caserio decisions that you probably question the most. By the way, it is the Locker Room. Subscribe, like, #1 source for Texans digital content on the net. There's all kinds of options. Shout out to Cody Stutes for doing what he does. Subscribe to Cody Stutes' channel. I think he's almost pushing 1G. He started about the same time as me, so subscribe to Cody Stutes. That's a hell of a resource. His takes are as good as you can get from a Texans perspective. But the thing with Kenyon Green, and I'll get to the other Caserio thing that I do think it's not too early. The Kenyon Green trade up. Matthew says Kenyon Green has been frumpy since high school. Not sure how he was a 5-star and then carried that to a top 15 pick. It's interesting. I mean, he was a beast at A&M, man. Like, he was a beast. I mean, they played him everywhere. I think he played on all 5 positions. I will say, and it's not it's rich of my skinny fat ass to talk about bodies, but Kenyon Green did not look like an NFL offensive lineman typically looks. He did look a little out of shape, and it will be interesting to see what Kenyon Green looks like when, I think, even mini camp after the draft, what he looks like, what Quiteriano looks like, what these guys look like. I think that will be interesting because even last year, the second-year guys, their bodies transformed. Like Nico put on some good weight. Roy Lopez might have lost too much weight, but when you're in the NFL offseason the whole time, you do tend to look. And I do subscribe. I do believe that that Kenyon Green's going to look better. And if he doesn't, then that's when we could really, really be concerned. Tyler asks, none of Caserio's moves have worked with the exception of players like Pierce Petrie. All trades have fallen and been hella disappointing. Here's the one that Caserio did, because we're talking about Caserio moving. We're talking about him making all these moves and stuff. The thing about the other one, Caserio move, the trade up, the most aggressive trade up, I think that one looks bad right now. And I like Nico Collins. Let's be honest. Like, we can the one thing we should do is, I think you should be forgiving of injuries, but I also don't think you should just like completely dismiss everything. Like, I think you guys can agree. Like, Nico Collins does not look like a guy who's like, I feel good about this guy as a number 2 receiver guy. I mean, he's a good player. He could end up being that, but even when he's on the field, and you can blame the quarterback if you'd like, that's fine. But even when he's on the field, like, you don't look at Nico Collins and say, all right, that's a guaranteed number 2, you know? Caserio traded up for Nico Collins. The chart nerds were all pissed off about it. But still on the board was Amon-Ra St. Brown with the Detroit Lions. I think we can agree that St. Brown's a better player than Nico Collins. I think we can at least agree to that. Now, is that going to be the case forever? I don't know. I would probably bet on it. But my point is, like, when Caserio has been his most aggressive, and it's not like he's like done it with projects, those guys, there's question marks about them, whether it's trading back or trading up. And you can say it's early. Yes, it is. That's all I have to really judge. So I don't know what to say there. Brown Chubby Bear, shout out to BCB. Nico Collins has been incredibly disappointing. Will a new QB help, or is he just a backup? Your guess is as good as mine. Here's the thing about Nico Collins. We're going to be at training camp where we have a player after every single day of training camp, not weekly, every single day of training camp. We have guys come through. We actually talked to Nico last year on In the Loop Sports Radio 610 10 to 2. We're going to be saying the exact same things about Nico Collins this year than we were last. Exact same thing. It's the exact same dialogue. How good is he? Can Nico Collins stay healthy? It's the same thing. It's the same thing with Grenard too. Grenard wasn't a Caserio pick. That's your pick, Jack, where Bill O'Brien almost tripped over his kid on the draft. Couldn't even keep his cool there. But that's the reality of it. Cullen the Irishman says, good QBs make bad wide receivers look great. Good wide receivers make bad QBs look average. It's facts. It's facts. No doubt. Rafi says Nico isn't a number 2. We need 2 and 3 and solid defenders. I can't disagree with that. Messing with the Zoom BOB jokes. So we have the lesson of popular pick head coach is not necessarily always the right one. Good trades with the Eagles in like every way, shape, or form. Quarterback can be the lipstick on a pig and save all butts. The Jags tax, you can still put together a good free agent class without having like marquee names like the Jags did. And running backs matter. Next lesson. And I know people are going to roll their eyes here, and I am not 100% in on this. But I know it wasn't a good game for Mike Kafka and the Giants, but they went from being as bad as the Texans were 2 years ago on offense to a middle-of-the-road offense. That's effing good. Nobody in here thinks Daniel Jones is elite. The fact that the Giants won 10 games after winning 4 and the fact that Daniel Jones was serviceable, that's impressive. We often fall victim to this whole like final game thing. And I can already see it in the comments. Well, Mike Kafka, he's not very good. Same people that probably didn't watch C.J. Stroud play all year and only watched him against Georgia. C.J. Stroud, he might be better than Bryce Young. You hear that. Aiden Hutchinson last year, his final game. Man, Aiden Hutchinson didn't look too good. I don't know about that kid. So I say all that to say a broken quarterback can be serviceable. Mike Kafka made Daniel Jones a serviceable quarterback this year. Could he do that with Davis Mills? I mean, they were talking about Daniel Jones the same way. Is there going to be a coach that's going to come in here and like what he sees from Davis Mills and think that that can be fixed? Now, Daniel Jones is obviously different because they invested a first-round pick on him. But a broken quarterback can be fixed. I'm just saying. I do bet you. I would bet a lot of money on this. I don't have the interview questions for tomorrow for Mike Kafka, but I will bet you that they will ask him what he thinks of Davis Mills. And he prepares for his interviews. Like some head coaching candidates, they don't really prepare for their interviews. They just go in there and say, hey, hire me. And they can't really show the value that they add. Mike Kafka will be able to show the value that he adds with the Giants and with the Kansas City Chiefs. And you will see that, or we won't see, but they will see what he thinks of Davis Mills. Can you think you can fix Davis Mills? No, it's not going to be like a big deal. It's not going to be like, the Jets interviewing someone trying to fix Zach Wilson or something like that. I mean, they'll also ask Mike Kafka, well, what quarterback do you like in the draft? Who do you think you could work with the best and why? What do you think about Bryce Young? What do you think about C.J. Stroud? What do you think about Will Levis? Like those will be the type of interview questions that they'll ask. And then Kafka will answer it. And we'll see how that goes. But this is probably the final stretch. Final lesson. And this is something that maybe we should keep in mind. Quick turnarounds are possible. They're absolutely possible. Now, look, Texans don't have as good of a roster as Jacksonville. They don't have as much young talent this year as Jacksonville did last year. And most importantly, Jacksonville has the quarterback, and they had the good offseason that we previously mentioned. And they were drafting at the top for a long time. So I'm not going to sit here and say, take this to the bank. But the Giants, they won 4 games last year, and the Giants won a playoff game in a very good division too with Daniel Jones. So the final lesson is that quick turnarounds can happen. Whether you're the worst team in the league for 2 straight years like Jacksonville, whether you're the New York Giants that won 4 the year before, it can happen. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 lessons from today from the divisional round before I get to the comments and we look ahead at this Kafka stuff. The popular coaching choice, not always the right coaching choice. See Nick Sirianni, see Doug Peterson. Trades in all forms, they can help you build an incredible core. See what's going on with Howie Roseman. Trading up for Devontae Smith, trading for A.J. Brown, trading and getting the New Orleans Saints first-round pick, all that. So trades can make you better. Number 3, quarterback can be the lipstick on a pig. No bleep, Sherlock. But you got the number 2 pick, so you'll have a chance. Too bad it's not number 1. Number 4, the tax, the Jags tax, and a unimpressive field of free agents. You can still improve. Number 5, running backs matter. Number 6, bad quarterbacks can be serviceable. See Daniel Jones. And number 7, we'll just move past number 7. We don't have to really get in that. Quick turnarounds, unless you believe in that. Quick turnarounds are possible. I don't even want to. I don't even think you can compare the Texans to either one of these teams, but it does happen. So there you go. Now we'll get to the comments. You guys have been crazy today in the comments. One Mike Streak, I guess no one cares what Gannon's defense did to New York. They shut down all of the New York wide receivers. They exposed the lack of talent on the roster. Yes, they did. And the Eagles also have probably one of the best rosters in the league. I don't know what the weakness is. If anyone can tell me what the weakness is of the Philadelphia roster, I would love to know. But yes, New York is absolute trash at receiver. It's actually kind of hilarious. They trade Tony. They have probably one of the worst contracts in football in Kenny Golladay, and they're still in the playoffs, and they won a playoff game. Jigsaw, how you been? Question, if we draft Bryce Young, do you think the Texans should focus on the offensive line for the draft? No, I think the offensive line is fine. You have 2 good tackles. You have Kenyon Green, who you think better be a serviceable starting guard and better get in better shape and try to get his body right for next season. You need a center. You might need another guard, although AJ Cam wasn't that bad. The offensive line was pretty good this year. I know we're used to not saying that. The offensive line was actually good enough to win this year, and it was actually pretty serviceable. Joseph wants to skip Kafka's interview tomorrow. Select your finalists from there. That's pretty harsh. Nathan asks, explain why DeMeco Ryans is the right choice. I mean, I can explain why he is, but I think people can push back and say why he isn't. I think he would be the right choice because he's always had leadership qualities. Players who played with him have always talked about what a leader he's going to be. Kyle Shanahan, who's put some pretty good coaches in the head coaching position, says he trusts him more than anyone that he's ever coached with. He's got the intangibles. He's got the body of work. He comes from the Shanahan pipeline. He's got assets to where he can find his quarterback, assuming that the Texans don't do with their number 2 pick what DeMeco Ryans' buddy Robert Saleh did and draft the wrong quarterback, like getting the Zach Wilson situation type of thing. And there's that. Now, why would he not be? Maybe you want an offensive-minded coach. Maybe you're one of the many people that want an offensive-minded coach. Maybe there's something else to it. Maybe in the interview process, they figured out, he doesn't really have a real opinion on the offensive philosophy, or they figure something else out. That would be that. They're going to have to figure that out. Eric said, I heard there's a rumor that DeMeco's interview went well. Is that just a rumor or true? I heard it went well. I don't know. I don't think it went bad. I'll say that. I don't think JJ would have tweeted out what he tweeted out if it'd gone bad. And I think JJ would know. Actually wouldn't shock me if JJ was doing a favor to try to increase the hype a little bit more. If DeMeco picks the Colts over the Texans, though, then that's they might as well just fold the franchise. because Indianapolis is a dumpster fire. And I know they're interviewing. I don't even know if they want to interview DeMeco or not. But if he chooses the Broncos, okay, whatever, cool. It's there's a little more history there. Maybe he feels like he can win with Russell Wilson. Blah blah blah. But if he chooses the Colts, man, we might have to cancel the whole damn season. Maybe move somewhere. I don't know. What team needs a football squad if that happened? I don't think it's going to. Tyler, so was it the defense or the offense that crushed that game? Because both were awesome. Talking about Philadelphia, they got good players, they got good coaches, they got everything you need. Sean Payton is out because he's going to either Carolina or Denver. Yeah, good. I never really was like, the biggest Sean Payton guy. I think there's some negatives about Sean Payton too. So good, go away. As long as you're not on Fox. God, he sucks. How nice was it to have Gronk today instead of Sean Payton? Good God, you really realized how awful he was at that. Good Lord, he should have to take a pay cut at Fox. Andre asks, DeMeco, the Philly boys, and Kafka should be the finalists. I think they are. I don't know what they think of Evero and Brown, but those are the finalists. Brady is all in for DeMeco. No trade required. Well-respected, great leader. Connections to Shanahan-style offense, which can definitely work with Bryce Young if it worked with Matt Schaub. PS5 franchise gaming with friends. Aaron Wilson sure has changed his tune. That report, I like Aaron a lot. That report of DeMeco's not interested just didn't make sense. It's not to say that someone didn't tell him or whatever, but the job wasn't even open when that was put out there. So, I mean, do you think DeMeco Ryans, who's like a respect the game, like football nerd type of guy, do you think DeMeco Ryans is like going to sit there and like, no matter what, no matter who's saying it, like put out that he's interested in a job that is at the time taken by Lovie Smith, who's kind of like an OG type of dude that players that played in DeMeco Ryans era have like respect for. And furthermore, I mean, the Texans, we didn't even know what the Texans were going to do. We didn't even know if they were going to handle the coaching search the way they have. I mean, there was very, very, very reasonable skepticism to think they didn't know what the hell they were doing. So why the hell would DeMeco do that? That never made sense anyways. I said that from the jump. You can go back to the old videos. I said that never made sense. Speaking of the old videos, like, subscribe. It is the locker room. Matthew says it's so hard to figure out what makes a great coach. What are the best examples of home run hires that turned out great? Shanahan most recently, I suppose. No, and that's the thing. Like, that's why I think you have to mention the positives and negatives. Like home run hires, a lot of times when you think it's a home run, it's not. I think most people thought the John Gruden back to the Raiders was a home run hire. Jimmy Johnson to the Miami Dolphins, that was a home run hire after he coached with the Cowboys. There's all kinds of examples of like home run hires. Like this guy has this amazing resume and he goes somewhere and he completely flops. Like that happens all the time. And that's why even last year I was like, okay with the situation the Texans were in, but because of how I felt about him for a long time, the Josh McCown thing, I was, the biggest pushback was, well, he doesn't have this. It's like, well, there's a lot of guys who had this, and they ended up sucking. So maybe experience can come in different ways. There is no exact science to it. You're absolutely right, Matthew. That's an excellent point. So I think it's just important to weigh the pros and cons. Don't necessarily like stomp the table. Tom Herman at University of Texas. I thought that was a home run hire. He sucked. Sean G, more impressed by I'm assuming he's saying Shane Steichen's offense or Gannon's defense tonight. I would say like and again, it might not matter because obviously you have to have good players and good coaches, but I would say I'm most impressed with Steichen because I know in the back of my mind that Steichen has worked with Justin Herbert his rookie year. And that was when Justin Herbert had one of the best rookie seasons I think a rookie quarterback has ever had. and also the job that he's done with Jalen Hurts. I just think Jalen Hurts has been used perfectly. Now, he's running behind one of the best offensive lines in the league. He's got elite receivers. He's got a good tight end. So, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's bad or good or anything like that. But you asked who I was most impressed with. I would say I stay the most impressed with Steichen because I think their defense, it would be easier to coach because you don't have to you have to do certain things, but I don't think you have to get as creative and whatever as Steichen does with the offense. Travis says Steichen should be our number one candidate. It'll be very disappointing if he doesn't get a second interview. Which brings to this, and keep the questions coming. We'll get to them. But if you're wondering about the time frame of these interviews, so right now we are right here. We're at the divisional round, the 21st and 23rd, and in-person and virtual interviews with coaches whose team wins. They can begin through January 28th. So before the conference championship game. So that's when in-person or virtual interviews can begin. A request for a coordinator position must be approved if it is not a shared position, et cetera. So then you have the conference championship games next week, and assistant coaches. And you only have to worry about this with the Eagles guys and the 49ers guys. So this is here like Kafka, Brown, Evero, all those guys that are already out. You don't really have to worry about this. But for DeMeco, and if DeMeco wins tomorrow against Dallas, but for the Eagles guys right now, conference championships games will be next week. Assistant coaches whose clubs are participating in the Super Bowl, who previously interviewed for another team's head coach position, may have a second in-person or virtual interview with such club no later than February 5th. So if DeMeco Ryans goes to the Super Bowl, his second interview would not be till February 5th, which is about, 16 days away from that. Then you would have the Super Bowl. And then on February 13th, second interviews with assistant coaches whose teams were participating in the Super Bowl may resume. So that's just kind of the timeline there for anyone wondering. And the natural question is, should you be rooting for DeMeco Ryans to, lose? No, I don't think that. Some people say, well, it'd be nice to get him to the Senior Bowl. Dude, they got scouts. That Senior Bowl access stuff, that's overblown. Has it worked sometimes? Yes, but there's also been examples where coaches fall in love with guys at the Senior Bowl and it doesn't matter. They're going to have enough access to these prospects to learn a lot about them. They're going to talk to enough people. So I don't think it's that big of a deal either way, whatever happens to DeMeco. And if the Cowboys beat the 49ers, just like I said, talking about overreacting to final games, I don't think it's oh, well, look at DeMeco. Oh my gosh. The resume's there. But that's when it would be there. Sometimes the popular guy, AKA DeMeco, is a no-brainer decision. Okay, that's true. Again, there's no exact science to it. Right or wrong, the game tonight may sway some people significantly to hire one of the Eagles coordinators, I guess. I don't know, by people, are we saying it's going to sway the Texans? Because I don't think so. I don't think that's really going to matter. But maybe it'll sway some of the public. Jim says if they end up going with DeMeco, they could announce anytime. We just laid out the time frame. I'm assuming they would want a second interview. If a guy like Doug Peterson was available this year, he'd be the front runner, but the only proven coach is Sean Payton, and there are too many strings attached. I don't know if Doug Peterson would be the front runner on many people's lists. I'm not sure. Maybe. Not saying one game should determine it, but Kafka had a tough day against a direct competitor and the weaker of your DC candidates. I don't think that. I'll just say this. I don't think that's a direct competitor. I mean, I know they're in the same division. I know this is the third time they played, but if you think those rosters are even close to the same, then good God. Um, if 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 Jonathan Gannon and um, Shane Steichen, if they switched roles with Wink Martindale and Mike Kafka, the Eagles still win that game. That's what was the most impressive thing about the Giants is that they got here. I would disagree that those are really like direct competitors. Thoughts on Gannon tonight? They did a good job. They won. And he's done a really good job for a while. He's laid out a pretty decent case for himself. Out of all the coaching prospects, DeMeco would garner the most patience from the fan base. Facts. Rafir says, is giving weapons to a good young QB to take away from the Eagles game? Facts. Really, anything you can do to a roster is the takeaway from the Eagles game, because Howie Roseman, whether you're talking about drafting, whether you're talking about trading, whether you're talking about developing, whether you're talking about hiring a coach, Howie Roseman does everything. The last 3 years of Howie Roseman as a GM have been elite. Getting what he got for Carson Wentz, trades, drafting, signing, hiring. It has been maybe the most impressive. I don't want to get like too prisoner of the moment, but it's been one of the most impressive like 3-year jobs that I've seen in a while. Officer Chang says, bring in DeMeco, hire Owen Daniels, tight end. Oh my God. Are you joking? Are we doing this now where we're just always trying to hire former coaches and players and all this type of stuff just because DeMeco's here? What are we going to turn into, like the Al Davis Raiders? Hire Andre Johnson, a writer coach, Matt Schaub, assistant QB, Arian Foster as a running back coach. Arian would be an awful coach, by the way. I think even he would be able to admit that. I heard him talking about it. He doesn't think they should practice and stuff. Arian doesn't want to coach, and Arian would be an awful coach. Giants OC didn't look good today. I think we've kind of covered that. I fully bought into the cult of Shane. So Shane Steichen, that's where BCB's at. Going back to the running back, Sean says you need at least 3 legit backs to be effective in the NFL. McCaffrey is the dog, but San Fran has a lot of guys who run the ball well. Yeah, they got Elijah Mitchell. I mean, they stay getting backs. The good teams stay getting backs. Michael Sanchez says, do you think we could trade for Mike Evans or Chris Godwin? I feel like Tampa is going through a rebuild. Why would you want that? What would the cost be? I don't know. Mike Google Me B says, y'all are clowns for saying Nico is not a solid number 2. Okay. Nico is the best offensive player on the team besides Dameon Pierce. WTF are you talking about? All right. I think he's just as much talking to the comments as me. Is that really how we're measuring things, that you're a solid number 2 if you're one of the best offensive players on the Texans? Because if that's the case, is Davis Mills like a good quarterback? Is Christian Kirksey a good linebacker? Like, yeah, he probably was one of the better players on the Texans. They sucked. They were terrible. Like, if you feel like Nico Collins is already a number 2 receiver, then you're either related to him or you're projecting, because nothing that we've seen says Nico Collins is a solid number 2 receiver. And I like Nico a lot. I mean, he works his ass off. When we were out there this year, Nico Collins is staying after damn near an hour and a half. It's not that fake hustle either. I mean, I think a better quarterback could help him out, but if you feel like Nico Collins is a number 2 receiver right now, I just don't know what you're basing that on. I don't know what you're watching. Marco says, if the Colts jump up to take Young at 1, should we trade down and take Anderson at 2? Look, if it's not Bryce Young, I don't want a quarterback at 2. That's just me. I'm just not really into all that at all. Like, that's just not, I'm Bryce Young or bust. But we'll see. We'll see what goes on there. MC says, no real coaching experience from Josh McCown. I don't know. Like, what is coaching experience? Like, if you're a backup quarterback that, and I don't want to get into McCown crap again, but if you're a backup quarterback and Doug Peterson lets you call plays in like a preseason game, or coaches are talking about you being a coach in the future for a long time and being an extra coach on the field. Is that coaching experience? I know it's not like traditional experience, but is that coaching experience? I don't know. And I mean, we've seen guys who've had coaching experience that have sucked. So again, there's really no exact science to it, but we don't have to worry about Josh McCown because Josh McCown ain't coming here. Not going to happen. Matthew says, what's your ideal coach based on vibes only? That's DeMeco. I mean, I don't even think there's a close second. It's DeMeco's vibes are so strong that I think even if they hire someone else, it could end up being a good hire. But it's not going to be initially regarded well. Black Rain, why do some people criticize when a team has talent? That is why they win, then complain about the Texans because they have no talent. Read that again. Why do people criticize when a team has talent? That is why they win. Okay, so this team has so much talent, and that's why they won. Then complain about the Texans because they have no talent. I mean, I don't know how those two things are connected. I think that some teams can have talent and not reach their full potential. Some teams can have a lack of talent and they can play above what you would think their on-paper potential is. I think the Giants are a prime example of that. I think Brian Dable did a really good job of coaching guys up. I think there's always going to be like when you're talking about, how effective a coach is or what's the reason why this is happening. You can have good coaches and good talent. You can have bad coaches and bad talent. You can have bad coaches and good talent. Like there's all kinds of combinations. But I don't understand the connection here. It seems like kind of an extreme straw man. But the Texans had bad coaching and bad talent. And I think we know they've got to do something, and it's got to start with this head coaching process. So that's where we're at. We'll get into the draft. I see a lot of you want to talk about the draft. We got plenty of time for the draft. It's all about that search right now, though. And it probably like the first part of it concludes tomorrow with Mike Kafka. 2 weeks. It's been a couple of weeks. Tomorrow it'll be 2 weeks since Lovie Smith got fired. And it seems like it was a month ago. But that's where we're at. So we'll see what happens. We'll go through it. TJ says, Landry, I'm getting annoyed with the offensive coach only guy just because of a QB. McDermott helped develop Josh Allen. Yeah. I mean, it's all about the quarterback. But there's different ways to look at it. I don't fault people for saying that you want an offensive coach. Most of the examples are there. Joseph asks if they're going to have the draft party. I would think so. It was a pretty big hit last year, and they got a lot of picks this year. So I hope so. I thought that was a really nice little mix by them instead of just doing it at the stadium. So we'll see. No matter what happens, though, we've learned some lessons. The DeMeco hype is real. He is the betting favorite right now, at least in Vegas. Take with that what you will. And Mike Kafka is going to have a chance to get the final word tomorrow, coming off a not so great performance. And we got some good ass games tomorrow too. Cincinnati a little beat up at that offensive line, but Joey Burrow has shown he doesn't need a great offensive line a lot of the times to get stuff done. So we'll see how that goes. Cowboys 49ers, that's the game of the week. That's going to be a damn good ball game. And we'll get a look at that. So no matter what happens, as all the stuff goes, as Mike Kafka has his first crack at it tomorrow, and it continues no matter what they do. Subscribe, like. It is The Locker Room. Listen to me 10 to 2 Monday through Friday, Sports Radio 610. Subscribe to Stutz' podcast. Subscribe to the Chronicle for 99 cents. That was kind of sad when Kabina came on the other day and said 99. Yeah, 99. He's worth 99 cents for sure. I don't know about $5, 99 cents. I can go with Kabina for that. Just kidding. I would pay the $5 too. But do all that, subscribe, like. That's the most important thing. And this is the best source for Texans digital content. And you guys are the best. Appreciate you. Have a good weekend. And remember, no matter what happens, we'll probably have an update on Kafka tomorrow, but no matter what happens, even if he bombs it, if he knocks it out the park, if he emerges as the front runner, if they cancel it, no matter what happens, we are all in this together. Have a hell of a Saturday night. Have an awesome Sunday. Enjoy the football. And I appreciate you all.